Oh, these are the paying sponsors for the show. If you want to sponsor the show, you can contact me for more information. Shoot me an email at neveragainstudio@gmail.com. Finishers MMA. 3761 Nicholas Street, Easton, PA. If you don't know who these guys are by now, how dare you? They do a show with me called Now We Go. Zach and J.M. Holland run 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Bethlehem. They have another school in Allentown, and that's John Thor Blank. These guys are elite black belts in the game. They are doing things no one else is doing in the area. If you're looking for self-defense, if you're looking to get in shape, if you're looking to just get your life back on track, Jiu-Jitsu is for you. Check them out. You can find information on them at finishersmma.com. Zach and JM are the teachers over at the Bethlehem School. At Finishers MMA is for all of their social media. And you can check out Now We Go, which is a podcast we do every Monday. But those guys sponsor the show, and they're beasts. Go check out finishersmma.com. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing is a one-stop shop for all of your plumbing needs. You can reach them at allvalleyrooter.net, or you can call them at 610-762-1656. They are fully registered, fully insured, and they have a 1-year parts labor guarantee. It is the plumber that we use for the show. Any problems that we've had down here in the studio, he's working on some projects for me now. He's stopped by several times. He's working on the studio above this studio. I personally put my guarantee on him. He's a close friend of mine. We grew up together. He told me the story about how he grew this business, and I'm impressed with Jared, and he does really good work. So if you need a plumber, do me a favor, do Jared a favor, call him. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing, 24-hour service. The number again is 610-762-1656, and you can get all the information you need at allvalleyrooter.net. And his social media is at All Valley Rooter on Facebook and Instagram. Rips Auto Detail. If you don't know who Rips is at this point, you are a first-time listener, but that's okay. We're going to tell you all about him right now. Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. Rips, he's the best. He's the best in the area. Highline paint correction, ceramic coating, and you can check out all of his work online. The best place to follow him is on Instagram at Rips Auto Detail. His daily posts of what he's doing over there. If you need your car restored, a boat restored, a plane restored, I don't care what you need restored, he will fix it. I've seen the guy bring things back from the dead. I've seen him work on clients' cars that are just continually bringing them in to get kept up with. He has a ton of different packages, and he can find one for you. So that's Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. You can follow him at Rips Auto Detail, and you can get a hold of him through there as well. If you go onto his social media, it's going to have his number and further information on how to get to him. I'm telling you, follow the social media. Give him a follow, show him some love, and check out what he's doing. He's high level, and he's one of our favorites over at the show. So check him out. Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives. They are high-end custom knives made and forged from scratch. Luke Delmeyer, friend of the show, out of Hellertown, Pennsylvania. He offers bladesmithing, farrier services, and blacksmithing as well. You can take classes over there. That is the thing that I push. I have a couple people that went over there, and you take a class and you learn how to make the knife. You start from step 1 all the way to the end, and when you're done with the class, you're walking away with your own custom knife that you made. The classes fill up pretty fast, so I need you to go over there and check it out. You can get all the information on classes and his custom knives on www.lukedelmeyer.com. Custom knives, classes, and more. Check him out. Follow him at Luke Delmeyer. Instagram's where it's at. All of his stuff's on there. He's got videos. He's forging constantly. He's been on some TV shows, and he's a friend of the show. So go check him out. It's Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives, farrier, bladesmith, blacksmith. 5 and Dime Easton. local skate shop in Easton, Pennsylvania, 140 Center Northampton Street, Easton, PA. You can call the shop at 610-393-7448. They carry a lot of local brands, and they carry Fucked as well. They're the only ones that actually are allowed to sell the Fucked clothing line in store. So if you're one of those guys looking for stuff you can't grab anywhere else and some custom things, it's in that shop. I've worked with these guys. We've had them on the podcast. It's awesome seeing the Easton skate scene have their own store. The store itself, it's super cool. It's skater friendly, skater owned, and you got to go in and check it out for yourself. And that's 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA. And check out the sales they got going on. Like I said, a lot of local stuff in there. We're going to collab on some stuff. I'm really glad to have them as a sponsor. It's awesome to see the skate scene in Easton have their own spot. So take my word. You got to go in, got to check it out. You can also check them out online. So it is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and their number is 610-393-7448. Check them out. Give them a follow at 5 and Dime Easton on all social media platforms. BTG Blasting. Back to Glory Blasting. Why is it called that? Because this guy's bringing stuff back from the dead. Old decks, siding, anything you need. You got a business. He does commercial and residential pressure washing. This guy's got the equipment to give you the best look possible. You got a little one at home, it ain't doing it. He's bringing it all over. He's bringing it over and he's knocking everything down, knocking the mold down, the dirt down. I've seen his work. He's done stuff at my parents' house. And he also just started doing virus disinfection. So if you have a business and you need it disinfected because of the coronavirus and all that, he has taken classes and is completely certified. He is now doing this studio monthly, and I can't thank him enough. I have guests that worry about things going on down here. We are now fully disinfected, and that's because of Back to Glory Blasting. It's fully insured, and it's commercial and residential pressure washing and virus disinfection at this time. You can reach him at 484-241-1711. You can also email him at btgblasting@gmail.com. Check him out. If you guys need any projects done, it's still summertime. You can get your decks redone, your siding redone. You got a party coming up, hit him up. If you got an office, you run in a kitchen. I know a ton of people that own kitchens. You can have it disinfected monthly for a fee, and he comes out and does it monthly. So you can, it's take all your worries away and just get this stuff done for the disinfectant, especially, the way times are now. So that's BTG Blasting, and we thank him for being a sponsor. Glenn Honan, Legacy Landscaping. If you don't know this name, you are not from the area. Glenn is a really good friend of mine, and he just got a new landscaping company back up. We did some apparel for him, and it's Legacy Landscaping. Glenn is the best in the area for landscaping. He's been doing it almost his entire life. I mean, before I was doing any of this, I worked for Glenn, and what he's doing now, it's awesome. It's awesome to see him back in action getting landscaping done, but he can cover all of your landscaping needs. You can follow him at Legacy Landscape, and you can reach them at 610-533-3669. Any questions you have with outside projects, whether you want to do hardscaping or you're looking to put in a pond, put some boulders out in the backyard, have some steps coming up, this guy can handle it all and more. There is not one thing that they're afraid to tackle, so you can reach them at 610-533-3669. What else can I say? He's a good friend of the show, and thanks for being a sponsor. Crawlspacerepairs.com. This is obviously for crawlspace repairs. What's crawlspace repairs? It's all the things that you don't want to do at your home, and you should hire them to do it. They are a family-run business, and they have over 120 years experience. They are specialized in crawlspace repair, encapsulation, and waterproofing. They provide exceptional workmanship and the highest quality materials. They have highly skilled technicians. They are also bonded and fully insured. They always provide free estimates and lifetime warranty for all waterproofing jobs. You can ask about their price match as well. So when you do that, you're going to need to call 1-570-476-5866. You can also go directly to their website, which is crawlspacerepairs.com. If you have any crawl space repair needs, please contact them. 1-570-476-5866. That's crawlspacerepairs.com. Never Again Radio, episode 69. Welcome to Never Again Radio, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
How are you?
Finally made it. I'm great.
I know. I don't even know how long ago that was. Kevin Patton, a close friend of mine, brought me down. When the hell was that?
I think it was a year and a half ago, maybe?
Hold on a second.
I don't even remember.
Yes, we're good. Yeah, it was probably like a year and a half ago. He was like, dude, you got to check this guy's Instagram out. And then he started sending me shit. And I'm like, when are we going? I grew up with him. He was the first person that took me into the city for food. Mm-hmm. And he started, I don't know, we started going down to Philly for cheesesteaks. And then that kind of grew from there. And then it kind of turned into this thing where he'd be like, hey, check this place out in the city. Like, I didn't have a lot of friends that were going into the city at the time. Yeah. So I've always had that relationship with him where it was even like, it would be like 11 o'clock at night and he'd be like, hey, Pat's and Gino's is still open. He's like, do you want to go? And we'd be all fucked up. And I'd be like, yeah, let's go. And then he kind of, he really started introducing me to me as what's better food outside of the Lehigh Valley. That was the first, like around here, it's a lot of pizza shops that just grind their steak into sawdust and then put shitty sauce on top of it. So the version of the cheesesteak around here is a lot different. But then we went down and I went with Eli and we ate in the parking lot, and it's some of the best food I've ever had.
Nice. That's awesome. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And seeing you guys out there, I mean, last time you brought a tent and tables and chairs, and people are like, what's going on outside? I'm like, everything I stand for. Yeah,
because everyone would be like, well, is there a place to eat? And I was like, no. I'm like, it's just pick up. And then I never thought about eating in the parking lot till I saw a couple of Action Bronson's Fuck That's Delicious, where they started making it a point to like eat where you would have to in the store. They weren't getting the special treatment. So like they would put their food like on top of a fucking dumpster. But I was like, this is what you do when you're in the city and there's nowhere to eat and you have awesome food and you just fucking hammer food in a parking lot. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, some of the best meals I've had have been in the strangest places, sitting on milk crates, by dumpsters, or on the back. Like the first time you came, you guys threw the tailgate open, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, good food can be eaten anywhere, and to just want to have it there and have it in its setting. I mean, if you take the food home, it's never good anywhere. It's good, but it's not the same. No. You know.
What the hell was I going to say? When we came down, because I've been down there, I think 3 or 4 times now, and every time we ate in the parking lot, it was never, the food was so good, you didn't give a shit where you were eating it. Because I came down with my buddy Mike, and then that's when we bought like a shit ton of stuff, and then like and then people started giving me orders where they're like, are you going back down? I'm like, dude, it's an hour and 15 away. It's a straight shot. Like, just get it. I forgot my water.
Yeah, that was
damn
cool.
it.
Here.
No, I'll go grab it quick. Yeah.
But no, that was really cool. I appreciated that.
2 seconds. I can cut this part out. Oh, sorry. How the hell did you get into cooking? Because obviously you've been cooking for a while. You just don't develop that skill unless you're cooking for like over 5 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started working for my father when I was 9 or 10. He had a store like mine, but back then we were heavy into butchering. It was it was a different business. A lot of butchering, a lot of cold cuts, catering too, but it was like we call it pork stores, butcher shops, salumeria. So, of course, I started doing all the, like, peeling onions, cleaning tripe, and all the fun bacala and all that. And, you know, I went to high school. I did it after school until I got, like, 19, 20. I was like, you know, I want to do this. My father's, of course, telling me my whole life, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Please don't do this. And now I tell him, you're the one who got me into it. If you didn't start, I wouldn't have fell in love and then gone this way. Yeah. So, I mean, we were heavy butchers, and then cooking just became more of what people needed from us. It was a lot of takeout, so I got into the everyday items. Then for my store, I had cooks and I had people helping me, and we kept it for the first 5 years. It was pretty much like my father's store. It was pretty much everything we did all the time, the sausage and peppers, the chicken parmesan. And then, like, I realized I couldn't get anyone to really do things the way I wanted to do. So I'm like, let me take over the kitchen. From there, traveling to Italy and meeting crazy food people. I just started loving it more and more. I think the way I cook now probably started maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But I always had a background, and I had parents and grandparents. Everybody, it was always food. Our whole
Were you
life
guys
was
always cooking at home? Like, is that
Always.
kind of how it started?
Yeah, I mean, my father worked tons of hours. My mother would be home, and we had amazing garden. I had my grandparents down the street. It was always home cooked meals. I mean, of course, once in a while I got a treat. Once in a while we go to Wendy's drive-through, get a spicy chicken sandwich. But it was always part of our whole existence. I mean, Italian American. My father from Italy. It was food. It sounds cliche, but it's true. Food is the base of our existence. So everything was handled or done around a kitchen table or around a stove. And so it was just natural to me. And, doing things in college with radio or doing music promotions, it was like, what am I doing? I love making food. Like, I'm just going to do it. And then every year at my store, I was there 12 years, I gained more and more obsession, and traveling and learning and eating things I never had, just more and more made me love it. Every day I try something. I'm like, oh, this is fucking great. Yeah.
It's probably my favorite rabbit hole to go down. I have a friend who just recently started cooking, and because I have the UFC fights down here almost every Saturday, and then we'll pick a theme to do, and then we'll make the food around some of the fighters, or someone will just be cool. Well, let's just do this, or let's do Italian food. So it kind of became this thing where we're moving all over. So then when he started cooking, and I started kind of explaining to him, because everyone's always like, well, how do you cook? And I'm like, well, a lot of it's timing, and you don't really understand timing until you start cooking a lot. But seeing how excited he is to where he got an air fryer, and then he moved to, for his birthday, I got him the electric skillet. Nice. And then from that, now he just sent me a picture. He bought a propane flat top. Nice. And his wife's all pissed off at me, and he's like, I'm making breakfast. I'm like, it's 11:30 at night. But just to watch people go down that, you don't realize until you do how much of a creative outlet that is. And then it's a lot of it too is taking recipes that you can take out of a cookbook, but then making it your way, the way you would want to cook. Absolutely. It's hard to really explain how good it feels to actually make food for other people.
To create. I mean, one thing is I love feeding people. I love just because I'm like, oh my God, I really love this. You got to try it. I'm going to make it for you. And to me, the most thing I hear from people is oh, I can't really cook well. It's you're overthinking it. Yeah. It's honestly, you can make great food super simple, and the best food is usually the most simple, in my opinion. But most people overthink it. It's you just start it, and if it is, the best way is to start from recipes. Yeah. And then you're like, you know what, I don't like this ingredient, I'm going to change it up, and then before you know it, you're creating your own stuff. It's not for everybody. Some people despise it. I've had friends that they get only takeout. They don't cook. They don't care. Yeah. I've had customers, we've delivered stuff to the house. They have kitchens that'll blow your mind that still have the paperwork and the shit inside the oven. You know what I mean? But I get it. It's not for everybody. Most people don't want to be bothered. Yeah. But for the certain person, once you catch that bug, forget it.
It's an escape for me. Yeah. And I feel like when I worked at places, and it always was the same thing everywhere. It was there wasn't a lot of help, but there was always one good guy in the kitchen that you could team up with. You guys did the most amount of the work, but then you I would be able to disappear. As much as I hated the job, I would be able to be I would be so into making the food that everything else was turned off around me. And then when you would start being when it comes into a routine, what are we doing for lunch? Yeah. What are we doing for lunch? Yeah. And then that was how you broke the day up, where you'd be my buddy Alessandro, he was from Sicily. So that's the first time I ever worked with somebody who was that much into food. And then I learned so much from him, where he was always you Americans, you just put sugar in everything and you ruin it. And
too much garlic.
He's you take our drinks, and he's like, well, now we have an espresso after we eat. And I was all right. And he's this is what you do. And I was cool. And I shot it. And I was I'll have another one. He's that is not what you do. He's you're not supposed to. I had 3 of them. And he's what are you doing? Yeah. And I'm just oh. And then was when I started learning different cultures, it's really cool to even just get that much knowledge out of everything. And when I walked into your place, that was what was so mind-blowing to me, where I was holy shit, this is a whole nother level. There's so much going on. And then I'm I want to taste this. I love going into restaurants and stuff like that, because you kind of know the back end of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I mean, of course, like you said, your friend of Sicily, we as Americans, we take everything and make it our own. And I love that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of downside to it. There's a lot of, I guess, watering down or kind of like the loss of tradition from the original. But you know what? Not everything has to be stationary. Not everything has to be a design. I am a stickler for tradition in a lot of ways, and I'm just as much not a stickler when I want to be. I mean, we, like you said, you go into a restaurant, you know what goes into it, and you want to go to a place where you feel the love and the passion of what they're putting out.
I try and explain that to people too, is like, if you're in a bad mood, and I've cooked long enough, and I'm sure you've realized it too, is like if you rush something or you make it in a bad mood, it tastes totally different than if you're smiling or high or like, if you put that energy into the food, you can literally change the taste of it.
And that's the thing. It's attitude and food, and the food business is one and the same, and it's not good in a lot of places and with a lot of people, which puzzles me because to me, like you said, it's an escape. I've always cooked professionally since I'm a kid or butchered, and then you go out with your friends, next thing you know, you're finding yourself coming home from the bar and like cooking at 11:30 at night, and like you're like shit, and that's your happiest times. Even if you end up making a shit show of a meal or something, you got ingredients in the fridge, just throw them together. It's just that desire to just be happy. And you know what? If you're eating food and you're not joyous, you're not fucking on cloud nine. What's the point?
Yeah, well, I remember when because I didn't always cook, and I just didn't know how to do it. I remembered making eggs as a kid, and my brother showing me. So then when I first started really drinking and going out, I would come home and my dad would stay up because a couple times I like passed out putting pizza in the oven. So like he would wait up, but like what he would wait up for is that I would come home and I would just make eggs. And then the one time we were sitting there and I'm wasted and he would just tell me Vietnam stories, and it was this cool time that only me and him had. And the one time he said, I don't know what you do with these eggs, kid, but he's just like, I've never eaten anything like this. And then that was the first time where I realized like, but I was relaxed and I had no stress because I was drunk. And then I was like making the food and I was like, oh, this tastes different. Then when I started like really getting into it, I started realizing like you can literally change the way it tastes by being in a better mood. And then if I'm in a good mood because I'm cooking, that's the best.
Well, that's the thing. There's pressures in the food business that most people can't. Most people will never understand how many pressures are in the food business. Whether it's my business was like a Sulumadia deli butcher shop, or whether it's a restaurant, there's always pressure. So if you can't handle that pressure, it's going to reflect on your work ethics. It's going to reflect on your team. But we all do. We're all humans. We all fuck up. But just that moment where you're like, you know what? I'm just cooking something. It tastes good. You enter a whole new phase. You really
what's the new phase that you're in now with not being at the store, and we'll get back to the store and everything. But I'm just interested in this because I saw it with me. Like when I tried to get back into cooking professionally, I didn't want the pressure. Like at a point in my life, like that was almost self-destructive to have that kind of pressure, which went with my drinking and everything else. But it's like I enjoyed that chaos, but then at the end of the chaos was the release. So it's like when I tried to do that again, I was like, I don't want this shit. And then now when I cook for my friends, I cook everything slow and just take my time. What I like doing is cooking bacon for 45 minutes.
There you go.
Like I'll just put it on low and I'll, just
slowly.
But then everyone will be like, dude, this is so good. And I tell everybody, I'm like, don't rush it. Don't rush. I don't have to make eggs in fucking 30 seconds.
Well, no, that's the thing. And when you're in the business, there's times where you just have to because it's so if you can get past that, or you can somehow twist that into your mind to be not so much pressure and not ruin your mood or whatever, you can go, but it's not easy.
I remember going out to eat and I would just eat like a homeless person's never been fed before. And my friend's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so used to only having 15 minutes to not even sit the fuck down and then get back to what I was doing.
That's the way I've always been. And we always
sucks.
It was always my father and I, we were always done eating before everybody because we didn't have breaks. So it's like you eat when you can, how you can. And it's just,
it took a while. It took a while of getting out of the cooking completely.
Go to Italy for like a week and eat out 2-3 meals a day and you'll be fine. Cause they don't, you sit for 3 hours in a restaurant, and it's great. And you're like, "What am I doing? Shouldn't I? What have I done?"
They're not trying to rush you out to get another table.
I
could
have done all this and all this time, but you're like, you know what though? I sat here with a glass of wine and a good meal, and I enjoyed myself. That's what I dealt with the pressure because I was so used to it. and I feed off of that, like
Yeah.
that, like we got to dig, and I got 5 things. I would love for you to come to one of the expos we do.
Absolutely.
When I got multiple ovens behind me and different things in each one, and I feed off of that.
Yeah.
And it's like a pulsating circle of I love this, and oh my god, I'm able to cook all this at once, and this is cool. And there's times when you're like, you just want to put your head in the deep fryer, but you know, just
the weeds.
To like, yeah, exactly. But like I always would still cook at home, and I loved it, and I loved putting music on or a podcast or comedy, and you know, you drink a little, smoke a little, whatever, and you just start cooking things. And I used to experiment more with different cultures, cuisines.
Yeah.
And then I really got into how much more I needed to learn about the Italian food I love. So I'm starting now to get back more into the cultural stuff because I feel like I've done my obsession, and I'm still there, but I've learned so much. But to me, to go home in my flip-flops in my kitchen and just having fun, it's the most amazing thing in the world. But I mean, who knows when I go back to whatever I open, what I'll feel like. But no matter what I do, it's going to be different atmosphere, different location, different. So honestly, I'm just kind of saying, you know, whatever. Hopefully,
but that's cool to take that break. Like I've had such a break from food, and everybody constantly tells me, open a place up, open a place up. There's no fucking food in this town. There's probably 16 pizza places, and the rest are salons, and I think maybe there's one bar, and that's about it. Yeah. So it's like, I know what I could do. I could open up a fucking cheeseburger spot and fucking kill it. Oh, yeah. But I look at it now where I'm like, do you want to work like that? How do you want to work? How is this going to be fun and you can still make money? And now I look at shit where I'm like, well, what if I'm open from this time to that time? I bring Alessandro in to run it. I pay him correctly because all he wants to do is provide for his family over here, and I pay him what he's worth, which no one ever does. And then I have him, and then now what I'll do is I'll do this for a couple hours, and then on the weekends maybe I'll do pop-ups, and maybe I'll see if, you know, you want to come up and be like, hey, you want to make this up here? And then like, now it's fun, you're cooking with people, you're still making money, and I don't want to put a gun in my mouth because I have to make 60 fucking hours a week to make money. And then everyone's always like, open it, and I'm like, not until I figure it out, man.
Yeah, you know what it is? It wasn't until about 3 years ago where I started to branch out and start doing the expos and the traveling to do pizza parties and all the stuff I've done with so many people I've made. Before this, my friends in the food business were very limited. It was restaurants we knew or people we grew up would have. And then I found myself in Texas and California, Vegas, Italy. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm meeting these great people. I'm cooking. And it even revitalized my love and made it even further. And I said to myself, I love what my store was, and I love that design, but I know I faced a lot of issues when it came to getting as much help as I needed.
Dude, the help is always the worst.
Having as much space as I needed, having space for equipment. So my thing was almost like Stockholm Syndrome, where every day I didn't feel miserable or pressured because I loved what I was doing so much. And then I would reflect back on, is this going to make me miserable one day?
Yeah.
Is it going to make this hard for me to do? Because I'm coming in, I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week. Sometimes, and doing events, sometimes more, as much as you have to get things done. And I wasn't really letting it bother me too much because I was still getting to cook. I was still getting to create. And now my idea is to figure out a way that I can branch out from where I was, do things I've been doing on the side, traveling with that couldn't be in my store, or I didn't have possibility for it to be in my store, and do it in a smart way where I can use the great people I know, amazing cooks that I'm friends with, that we can create something that we all can work on. We all can put our peace of mind to it. We all have similar motivation, and I can be as happy as I was, but not killing myself and putting out more product. Like people are like, oh, you couldn't handle, some people tell me you couldn't handle the work. I'm like, I've did it since I'm 9, 10 years old. My father's stores were way busier than my store.
I love people who make those comments, but then they would never even decide to make any of the stuff half from scratch that you did.
Oh yeah, and you see yourself. You're like, I remember being 15 to 25 years old in my father's store and working sometimes 22-hour days Christmas week. Like I can handle it, but now I'm 37. I'm not old, but I'm not 25 anymore. And I know my future is food. So I need this time to work on myself. I mean, I've been eating a lot more.
You have to though. Like I made a cheeseburger and someone goes, dude, that's fucking legit. Yeah. They're like, that I would buy that in a restaurant. Yeah. They're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I made 60 of them and gained 25 fucking pounds.
That's it. But it's, I'm taking that time to work on stuff, to relax a little more, do stuff around my house because I've never had the time.
Good for you.
And we'll see what happens. I have a ton of opportunities, ton of ideas. I have friends. We want to do everything together, but also with the times now, really, who knows?
Yeah. I feel like that it'll all come back. I feel like there's people doing different things now, and the pop-up stuff is probably more realistically better at this time than to do an actual restaurant. I mean, we were talking earlier, the amount of people I know that own restaurants and have just been fucking, this has just been a beating to get through.
Yeah, it's not good. And I hope, like we were saying, the mom and pop stuffs are the ones that are suffering the most. And the thing is, I'm hoping that after all this mess, especially I'm right outside of New York City, I'm hoping it goes back to a mom and pop thing even more.
I think so. I think that there's a lot of businesses that are doing more. Even the business in town, like people are having to put seating outside, so they're doing rope lights and stuff. And I'm looking at them like, you should have been doing this shit from the beginning. Yeah. Why did it take this shit for you to get creative?
I know. Well, that's the thing. Hopefully the people that got the little bit of punch, like we got to do anything we can to stay afloat, that fuels them to be better. And hopefully the people that are out there that can't afford crazy rents in some places and the rents are going down, maybe they can finally, you never know, we could have a new wave of amazing food. I've always seen how many waves over the years of American culture, American food, whether it's Italian or, Italian base or Asian, we have the choice to eat almost anything in this country.
And it's almost like the palette is now, or like the canvas is now being wiped, where if I wanted to open up a spot and one weekend do Italian food, then the following weekend do German food, and it's and then just only be open for breakfast, and then dinner time, then I just serve whatever the fuck I want. You know what really opened my eyes to it is I was watching a documentary or something on pizza, and the one guy, I forget where he's at, he worked in the business for years, and I never worked pizza, and Alessandro told me that's 10 times crazier than doing actual food. It's like the pizza business is insane. And he was like, and this guy was like, I came up with my recipe and everybody loves it, and every day I make, I think it was like 65 pizzas. And he goes, it's exactly the amount of money that I want. And he goes, I work by myself. I make 65 pizzas. He goes, there's a line out the door every day. I change up what they are. And he goes, and no one questions it. And if you're not there at 5 a.m. or whatever, you're not getting pizza. And then I was like, damn, how crazy would that be to actually do that, to where you didn't get burned out. You came in at a specific time. You were relaxed. You made all your food. You listened to music. You had a couple glasses of wine. You sold it all and you were done at 1 p.m. And I was like, why can't the food industry be like that?
You know what? I've always been envious of people like that, because I would love to do it. In my place, in our places, it was like, we're running out of something. Break your fucking ass. Make more. Hurry quick.
Yeah.
And I get it. Because it's not always, it's not more about the money as it is. You got customers coming in, and I feel terrible. There are things that I'll make sure I would never be out of in my store. But then once in a while, you got to say, look, we just couldn't do it. And you get to a point where you're like, why should I do it? Like, I get it. We're here to make money. We're here to pay bills. But at the end of the day, how much you willing to give of yourself and kill yourself to do it? I know plenty of places where they're like, we're open from Thursday to Sunday, no reservations. We make this much stuff, and you know what, most of those places are some of the best places I've ever been to, and there's just it's not, people are like, oh, it's so arrogant, some of these people are so arrogant, we run out of dough, screw you. You know what though? Why? Because there's people that they have a craft, we love what we do, so why would we have to sacrifice our mental and physical state? And a lot of times quality gets sacrificed when you really try to go balls to the wall.
Absolutely. If you try and rush something,
if you can have a limited time span or a limited quantity, and you're making what you love to the best of your ability, and people enjoy, that's what's wrong with that. And I think that's great. If that was the future, I'd be the happiest person you ever met.
I think it can be. I feel like because so many restaurants are being fucked from all this, where they have to change everything to where there's restaurants that weren't doing takeout that now have to do takeout. And I feel like everything's been turned upside down. And I always stress, when things get turned upside down and that the box is emptied. But now that the box is empty, you get to choose what the fuck you want to put back in the box. So if you're a restaurant owner and you can start trying out different things, like with Kevin down at the ramen shop, like Kevin will always have the work ethic to never give up. And like, he's not making the same money he was before, but now he's got outside seating. He's got he DJ'd the one night down there. Then he brought in a guy who, was down the street, who was on, like, not American Idol, was on one of those where he was, in the top 10. So this guy moved down the road, and Kevin's like, yo, do you want to perform? He said people started coming down the alley. Now he's learning different ways of putting asses in his seats that might not would have been, because he's stuck in that grind of fill the seats, turn them over, get them the fuck out of here. And it's a very interesting time.
I appreciate that, though. It's almost like forced, pressured creativity.
Yeah.
And out of that, there's going to be people whose whole career changes because they realize this is what I should be doing, or this is what I wanted to do, and now I can. And I see like the creativeness of people that are making their businesses work with this shitty situation. And I find that, and I hope that with all the social distancing and all the people being forced to not get together, I hope that this brings people closer together and realize, what we're doing. We were in the city last night when ate burgers, and like, we're seeing like you have the little places. I've never seen people with all these outdoor seating. It's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Maybe the connection to neighborhoods will come back. I mean, I try to look at everything as hopeful as possible. So, we'll see.
When I got stuck down here, it's like I wasn't going home, and I stayed down here, and then, it was scary because of what they were pumping on TV. And then when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, I could still run this fucking business. And then like I got a fire under my ass, and I was like, dude, you have 30, ended up being 62 months. And I was just like, this is 2 months of your time where you'll never have, where the whole world stops and you can adjust the problems going on with your business, which I'm sure that once you started having the food place the way it was, there isn't a lot of room to stop and change shit, because it's just ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. So when that stopped, it's like I took the opportunity, and even I said to my mom's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not getting bailed out. I said, but when have I ever not fought for this business? So I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to move the t-shirts to $10, try and sell more. I'm like, I'm going to fix the back end of this business. This is what's always been screwed up. And now coming out of it, it's like my business has never been tighter.
That's the mentality everybody needs. And I mean, in every aspect of life, none of us are perfect, but instead of tail between the legs and running away, or woe is me, look at all this bullshit I have to put through, take the time, figure it out, make it better, make it stronger. I mean, my store was way busier. We were up like crazy, and I was at almost half staff. So I had to close one day a week because we were a grocer. We did butchering. People were buying meat. Like, I always wanted to sell meat there. We sold pasta flours. We sold cold cuts. So
so everything there.
Yeah. But like, where I felt horrible because so many of my friends were struggling, they still are, I was busier than ever.
Yeah.
And at the time when I'm looking and seeing people like you and friends I have that are improving what they can do because there's nothing else, I'm watching myself just struggling every day like it was the holidays every week.
Yeah.
So there was no time to renovate. There's no time to fix. We're going to see the people that survive, and I hope more survive than not. We're going to see restaurants better looking than they ever were. Design, if you can get through this bullshit, if you can work in a pandemic situation in the food business, when it's all said and done, it's going to be smoother than ever for them.
Yeah, you're going to be making more money than you ever were because everything's going to be tighter. Yeah. It's funny you say that because we went to this. There's a breakfast place. It's just like a diner off to the side of the road, and it's like a greasy spoon. They're probably still cooking with Crisco.
I love it.
It's awesome. It just tastes like my grandmother growing up. But when we went there, it was so weird because it was the first time the place was cleaned. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, yo, why is it so bright in here?
This is weird.
And then it was because they had to clean to get reopened.
Yeah.
When you turned your food place into what it was with like all the different specialty stuff, how long did that take to switch over to that? Did you just do it like, we're like, hey, tomorrow we're going to offer all this? And then, because the other thing too is your social media game is strong. So like, how much did that, like, when did that turn over? And you were just like, holy shit, people are coming in here to take pictures of the place, take pictures of me. That had to have been weird.
Well, what it is when I opened my store, it was in the design of all my father's stores, which were amazing. And it was great. We're in the A&S pork store name, which is well known since the 40s. So we were stuck in this design. And as I got more into different things, I got more and more frustrated. So I would try to introduce stuff. And people see an A&S store, they see a pork store, they're coming in for the stuff they know everybody has. And I'm like, I love that stuff, but I love other stuff. So I would say maybe about 5-6 years ago when I really took over my kitchen, I started doing more interesting Italian stuff, doing more traditional stuff, doing my porchetta, trying to little by little. And some things, went home for dinner because people didn't buy them because they wanted their eggplant parmesan instead or their Italian combo. And some things really caught on. And then I started, doing the social media obsessively. I used to post like 6 times a day, like years ago. And I noticed I was getting followers of people who were in the business more chefs, more, people from oven companies, people from cheese companies, and they were really loving what I was doing and then coming out all the way to me. Cause like it's an hour and 20-minute drive. It's not around the corner and it's not like a destination. It's not like you're going to Manhattan. So yeah, we'll go see Angelo and then we'll go to the Empire State Building. It wasn't the same. So I would say around then, and then I hooked up with Forza Forni, who is the oven company based out of New York, and I started doing shows with them. And I was just helping make pizza. And then they're like, all right, we're going to Vegas. And we went to Vegas. All right, let's do steaks. And then I started setting fires in ovens and salt popping everywhere and fire and like in steaks and pork. And it just caught on. And, I tried to, I stay as much as I can myself because I'm me and I'm.
No, I think you do a good job of it.
If people like me, they like me. If they don't, I don't care. I make honest food. I never bullshit about the quality of my products. I never bullshit about process. I don't represent anything a different way. Look, I'm a fucking metalhead. I smoke Marlboro Red since I'm a teenager. I like drinking wine. I have nothing to hide from myself. I grew up on, like we were talking before, I grew up on Opie and Anthony, Andrew Dice Clay, and Jim Norton.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is me. And you know what? At the food shows, I'm in the chef associations. They got the white coats. I'm over there starting fires with an Inflame shirt on. Like, it's like, hey, whatever. And you know what? I'm glad that the social media thing did pick up. I don't have a huge page, but I have some of the best followers, and I'm not trying to be that kiss ass. Like, I love you all. No, it's serious because I have people that motivate me all the time. I talk with people from all around the world, and it pushes me to like, you know what? I don't have to make a cool, like fancy caption and be refined. I'm home cooking, listening to Slayer and fucking, and that's what you're going to get, So
that was my favorite part of it. When Kevin hit me up about it, he was like, yo, he responds back. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's him. It's not it's not anybody else. But that's important though, because some people don't talk to anybody on there and it is just for, they're just trying to monetarily do it. But then it was so crazy because I kept seeing all the food and I'm like, man, this dude must be like super Italian. And I'm like, this is fucking crazy. And then I think one of the times is you were like playing Poison in the kitchen. And I was just like, he listens to Poison? Yeah. I'm like, this is so fucking crazy. And then then I started seeing how much you were into metal. And then I was just like, holy shit, man. Like, how the fuck did he even get into metal this heavy? And then when you traveled over to see, what was it, In Flames over to...
last summer in Sweden.
Yeah. I was just like, this dude's like into some serious fucking music. But that was a draw to me too, because I liked that you weren't, trying to be some Food Network bullshit or like, anything trying to sell yourself. Like you are 100% yourself on there.
Yeah. And you know what? I just got into somewhat of an argument with somebody earlier today I told you about, which I don't even give a fuck about, but I'm going to be me. Because when you meet me, I'm not going to be any different. I'm going to be fucking offensive. I'm going to be crude. I'm going to be I'm going to be funny and welcoming. Yeah. I'm not rude. I'm not an asshole unless I'm pushed to be, which everybody should be the same way.
Yeah.
But like, I was a kid listening to my father and all his coworkers and my cousins listening to Van Halen and Motley Crue and Poison.
That's awesome.
And then stealing my father's, I remember to this day, Ozzy Osbourne CDs from his old stack. Remember the old stack stereos? Yeah. Obsessively listening to it, stealing all the stuff, getting more and more into it. And then, of course, you're a teenager, listen to Metallica. I was in a Metallica cover band with my buddies. 3 of us. We either had a drummer and no bassist, or a bassist and no drummer, but it was always us and me trying to sing like James Hetfield. So, it was like the gateway, the Metallica, the Megadeth, the Slayer, and you either got heavier or you kind of like rode that plane. And for me, I was at Tower Records in Yonkers where I grew up in New York, and this guy saw me with a Sabbath shirt on. It was 98, I think. And he's like, you guys listen to metal? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you ever heard of this band? And he showed me an In Flames CD. It was Horacle. It was like crazy woman on it and a logo. And it wasn't like, at the time, it was like Korn and all these bands and Limp Bizkit. And he goes, never mind. He goes, that stuff's huge now. It's going to fucking fade. This is real metal. This is the future. Now, In Flames is huge now, but I wouldn't say it's the future because metal to me is kind of like as stagnant as it's ever been. But In Europe, it's not, but here, you know, so for the first time I put this song on, I'm like, what the fuck is this? This guy's like got scratchy vocals and it's got crazy, you know, melodic riffs, and from there it was, then you get into the deicides and the crazy death metals, and someone says try this, and I got into Norwegian black metal and reading books about guys breaking rabbits' necks and putting on churches and lighting churches on fire. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's crazy.
It's real crazy.
And then
there's like documentaries on that shit.
Yeah, I know, and it's cool. And I mean, of course, I had hair down to my waist, or the camo short, when I still have the camo, and the Doc Martin 15 eyelets, and I thought I was badass, and I sang in a couple bands. I tried, but I got deeper and deeper, and then I did radio in college, which was 2 nights a week, and it was 10-mile radius. The Westchester County penitentiary down the street used to get letters all the time. That was my fan base. It's either you sat in the parking lot, or you accidentally stumbled upon us, or you were in jail. So it was pretty cool. So we went from there, and then I started throwing concerts around New York, in the city, in Long Island, and Westchester, and representing like local metal bands.
Were you still doing food at the time?
I was still working 7 days a week for my father.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was work from like 7 in the morning till 7 at night, run down to the city either to promote a show or to meet with people, and then you end up getting home at like 4:30, you go to the diner, you get soggy eggs, and you go back to work. And that was what I did for a little while. I lost probably 30 grand in 2 years being a promoter, but everyone's like, oh, next step is agent. You're good, because then you start making money. I'm like, all right. But then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm making decent money for my father when he decided to pay me, and I really love what I do. I'm killing myself to sit in a bar and like, how many head counts did you get? 10 people? Okay, you know, it wasn't, but I always wanted to be a vocalist. I did some death metal stuff, some bands, some black metal. I did some backing vocals at shows, but there wasn't time. And I realized that if I'm going to put anything on the back burner, it's going to be the death metal, black metal vocalist, because there's a chance nobody's ever going to hear my music, and I want to cook. I want to eat. I want to cook. I want to feed people. And look, I got the opportunity to choose what I do. My father went into the food business because he had to support his family and then support us brats and put a fucking roof over our heads. He had to do it. And my father loves food, and he's amazing at what he does. But I got an opportunity at like my early 20s to be like, all right, what should I do? Yeah. And I got the pleasure and to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to make food my career. It was an easy choice. I mean, don't get me wrong. I in my car and in the shower, I'm scratching on fucking death metal, and I'm like, you know, it would be great to do that, but I wouldn't take that choice back ever. You know? Yeah.
But I also love how much, and I try and tell everybody this, is I don't stop listening to music. Nah. The moment I wake up, I put music on. I'm in my car, I put music on. Yeah. Like, the only time there isn't music playing is if I'm doing this, or like there's business stuff. But if I'm like working on emails and like when I'm down here working all day long, like that TV's on. I bought an expensive speaker. Nice. Like it's such a part of my life. And then when I see other people listening to music that much, where like you're listening to music at the shop, then you would be like, this is what's listening on the ride home, and I'm like, damn, that's so awesome that I love it. And the other thing too is like it's one of the only things that can completely change your mood. Can completely change your mood. If you're having a terrible day, you get in your car and a song comes on, and boom, now you're in a different mood.
It doesn't have to be a happy, like people listen to me, oh, you listen, it sounds so miserable and dark and all that. I'm like, but I connect to the riffs of the guitars or the lyrics, and you know, I can listen to anything from, I grew up with my mother blasting Anita Baker, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston. I can throw that on once in a while or hear it and love it. I listen to Phil Collins all the way to like Collins. Mayhem, burning down fucking church. You know, so it's mood or it's just atmosphere. You know, I'm not a big Jimmy Buffett fan, but if I'm in Key West and fucking Margaritaville comes on, I'm like, yeah.
Well, I never got into reggae until we went down to the Outer Banks, and then we went to just some shack to just get, someone was like, they got good seafood there. And then the guy came out and he was like, you want a beer? And they had Red Stripe, and then there was Jamaican music playing in the background. And I'm hanging out with my buddy having these fucking beers, and then I'm just like getting into the music, and I was like, oh, that's what this music's for. Yeah. Like, I've never had the opportunity to like relax and listen to reggae. Now it's like when I'm relaxing, I'm like, oh, I'll put fucking reggae on. If I get high, I'll be like, oh, I'll put on some, you know, reggae on Pandora, and it goes into some different weird algorithms. And
that's the beauty of music. When you're a true music lover, you have that. Look, in my backyard, I'm not going to blast death metal. I'm going to blast Van Halen, or I'm going to put on some AC/DC or something with lively, or having a barbecue, stuff like that. I could find myself doing all that. It's always a release. It's always a connection. And I've gotten shit before. I had an Italian chef told me on Instagram one time, because on my story I had crazy death metal playing while I was cooking. He's like, this is not the proper music you listen to when you cook. This is bad for them. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, and I've had customers over the years at my store, my father's store. Like, I used to tie my ponytail up the top of my head when I had long hair and put my hat on. Nobody knew I had long hair. And then they'd see me out at a bar, right? Not even recognize me. Oh, I didn't think you were like that. I'm like
that.
What?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, and I told one time a customer, I said, do you realize that 90% of this food is made with fucking death metal that would make you run to church playing? I'm sorry. Like, kiss my ass. Like, what am I supposed to do? This is what I listen to. I don't only listen to it. You become my store in the kitchen and you can hear, like, the funniest shit ever. You can hear Italian pop. Like, this guy's got Eros Ramazzotti playing, and then, like, Cataclysm fucking, you know, it's like...
But when you're in the kitchen like that all the time, you have to, you play different fucking music.
Yeah.
Like, I would create playlists, and then I had this one playlist, and then I would start it at dinner, and I would time it to when the one song would hit, and Alessandro realized what I was doing, and he goes, oh, it's time to clean up. And I was like, yeah, man. Yeah. Like, in the beginning of the playlist, it's heavier, faster stuff because you have to keep a fucking pace. Oh, yeah. When I got 50 fucking tickets down here to make fucking cheesesteaks, and I'm just going boom, 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 boom. But then as the breaks would be in the time, because you have your rush, but then it would slow down a little bit. But I would time the music of the playlist, and we would play the same playlist until, 3 months would go by, and someone would be like, hey, you got to make a new playlist. But it wouldn't matter. We would throw shit on.
You're smarter than me because I would have my iPad hooked up to my bullshit little boombox in the kitchen and be changing stuff all the time.
But we would do that too.
Garlic everywhere. Yeah. I dropped my iPad into the garbage can 1,000 times, But it's always like an inspiration thing, and to me, I love the background of it.
Yeah.
And if you know the music, it's fueling you, it's pushing you, and it's it doesn't have to be anybody, as long as you love it, doesn't have to be any specific music. For me, it's death metal. And you know what I do love the most about it is my stories have brought out all these people that I never knew or expected listen to death metal, and I'm like, really? And like chefs, you think, I'm like, cool, you're into the fucking, like, people are blaming bands like, oh, you know that band? I love them. I saw them in Milan. I'm like, really? I'm like, are you kidding me? This is my life. And it's cool because I've never hid who I was anyway. I could give a shit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's become like, oh, Angelo's cooking because there's crazy metal in the background. Or we did the Beard House and my buddy John threw on his little Bluetooth speaker. We had Pantera while we were prepping at the James Beard House. I'm like, it's how I've always been. And if I'm going to live my life doing the food I want, then it's going to be attached to everything with me.
How awesome was it for you to go see In Flames, but then the amount of food you ate while we went over there, like that was, it was such a cool story to watch when you went there, because you were like a kid in a candy store. First of all, you got to see a band in a fucking castle. I don't care who the band is.
It's cool.
It was like
island.
It was like Blade, or like John Wick when over there. So it was like it looked like something out of a fucking movie. It's probably where they filmed those scenes. But then when you got into the food you were getting into as the travel as well, I was like, man, he's probably in his fucking. It had to be so awesome to be able to travel, see a band you love, and then just eat awesome fucking food the entire time.
Yeah, because you know what? For me, like wherever I go, I try to eat what's the food from there, the local food. Like when I've been to Italy so many times, you're not eating cacio e pepe, a Roman dish in fucking Sicily. You get into it. So I get to Sweden. The first day I was there, I had this little, I don't know how I even got this hotel room that was a walk through the woods to the castle to get to the concert. So I was like, forget it. Everything about this trip was like ridiculous.
Who set the trip up? Did you set the whole thing up?
In 48 hours. I messaged the drummer and bassist who are newer members, but they're in the band. And I was like, look, the show is this weekend. I've been really going through a rough fucking time, and it's my favorite band. And right now, all I'm listening to is this music, and I feel like I need to do this. I'm like, how really hard is it? And I put out posts on their message boards, and people are like, I'm like, I don't speak Swedish. I've never been to Scandinavia. I'm like, what do I do? They're like, don't worry. I had all these people helping me from Sweden and Denmark and guiding me.
So the band was actually going back and forth with you?
Two members, yeah. It was really cool.
That's crazy that you could get a hold of them.
Yeah, they're like, thankfully they responded to me. I'm like, this is cool. So I said, you know what, fuck it. I booked the ticket. I didn't even understand the website, but I booked the most expensive one because I knew it had like VIP shit. I'm like, if I'm going to Sweden, I'm not gonna I'm gonna back down on
stay in a hostel.
Yeah, exactly. So there was nothing available, and these great Swedish people are all fucking nice. Was like, we have a camper on the campgrounds. You stay with us if you can't find a hotel. But I mean, I'd found one. But like the first day, I had no way to cook. I didn't know what was open. I didn't know anything. I just rented a car and literally drove out, parked the car, changed my shirt, and walked through the woods and went to a castle to a fucking concert. So I went to a supermarket. I bought whatever looked good, and I ate it on the floor of my fucking hotel room. And then the people I met there were so cool and welcoming. Like they're like,
so you went to that alone?
I went by myself. Yeah, I've never done.
That's nuts. I thought
was
the
crazy.
people you were with you knew.
I spoke to one of them through through Facebook, telling me, don't worry about this, and if you're going to book this, and like giving me little guidelines. But I booked the trip in 24 or 36 hours before I left. I landed in, it was I had to go to Stockholm and then fly to a little ass fucking airport, pick up my rent-a-car, drive over this bridge to this island, and I'm seeing like...
Dude, it must have been so crazy just driving.
I know. I'm a history nerd.
Yeah.
And I'm a music nerd and a food. So I'm like, so luckily these people I became friends with, they're so amazing to me. You have posters. You can't try to bring those back. I'm going to take you to a stationery store and get you poster things. I'm like... Really? And they're like, let's go get lunch. Because there wasn't much open. It was a Sunday in a little island in Sweden, and it wasn't tourist season. So like, we're going to have a typical lunch, with shrimp sandwich thing with all this mayo on. I don't give a fuck. I love mayo.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow. And then we had coffee, and we're eating all these different cookies, and they're taking me everywhere in this little, I mean, if we had more time, and I can't wait to go back and hang out with them and do more. But like, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is such a world. And it's 2-night concert, and the castle tours, and they had crazy American barbecue. That's what I was like, all right, let me go to the show. Maybe they'll have some. I wonder what the food is like, because the band loves food. Members of the band own a restaurant in Sweden. Members of the band own breweries. I'm like, there's got to be good food. They had burgers and American barbecue, brisket
like,
and pulled pork. I know, but it was fucking good.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never been to a festival and had a burger where it was medium rare inside.
Yeah.
A double. I'm like, wow.
No, you go to a concert around here, it's fucking boiled.
Yeah.
And fucking
Oh yeah.
steamed.
It's the bottom of the barrel shit. And I was like, I enjoyed that. And then I did the VIP thing. So I met the band for the first time. I met the singer who's my...
Did any of them speak English?
They all speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2 youngest guys are actually from California.
Oh,
and the
cool.
rest are from Sweden. But the 2 older members, which the singers, I don't look up to people, really. I look up to what they do. But he's one of the people I like always look up to. His lyrics are probably like the best thing that ever happened to me in my life when it comes to at least my brain. I used to, whether I'm low, whether I'm high, whether things are great, it was always a lyric. So I met him. I said, listen, for 20 some years, you've like helped me live and like kept me alive. And he was like, thank you. And he's a famous singer. I mean, he's not American famous. They are famous here, but in Sweden, they're like Metallica.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that shit.
Yeah.
I go to they had their own tonic at the friggin' supermarket. I'm like, what the fuck? And he was like, took me aside. He was like, thank you for telling me that. That means a lot to me. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
It's crazy. There's like a couple European bands I got into. One of them's Block Party, and then when like they're big over here in like the genre that they're in, but then when I go onto like their webpage or their albums and I see them playing over there, they're in fucking soccer stadiums, and it's crazy how different it is where they're still popular over here, but then they're like mega fucking stars over where they come from.
And it's cool because when you love it, you get like a connection. Like I heard them in 98, and then I saw them the first time at CBGB's, believe it or not, a bunch of like crazy like Swedish metal bands or a couple American too. And but they were big underground. Then they got bigger around the world. So they got bigger here, but it's never the same here. Metal always has like a whole different platform in Europe and Asia. So like to go to a fucking ancient castle and to see, because it's their festival. If they weren't just playing, it's their festival. They headlined both nights, and to walk up seeing thousands of people with inflame shirts and like to watch them in their country with their people, watching all the videos of the crowd jumping, because we mosh and try to kill each other in America. They like bounce around and push each other and jump up and down to the beat. I'm like, this is amazing. And I'm like, you see, I'm like, all the concerts I went to in New York, and Anders is like, come on, jump. I'm like, and to be in the crowd amongst all the Swedish people. And the best part is when they start speaking to me in Swedish, I'm like, what? And they're like, where are you from? I'm like, New York. They're like, what? It was really cool.
When you had VIP, were you up front then? And did you get to like go in early and get to kind of pick where you wanted to be?
You get to go in early. The first day I missed half the festival because I was flying there. But like the next day you go in early.
So was it a death metal festival in the castle?
It was a bunch of metal bands each day.
That's crazy.
And there was, they headlined each night, and each night they had a different headliner ahead of them. So like when the first night I just rushed in there. It was all open general admission, so there was no seating anyway, but there was like a VIP, get this shit. You walk through a pathway and then up these stairs, and you're walking on castle walls, and you get to the top of like a turret, and there's the VIP section. I'm like, what's going on? And like they had beer, because the singer's brewery, of course they're going to sell his beer, and all these people, and I'm like, wow, I'm in a castle. Like, there's Viking shit around here. Like, that was the VIP. But yeah, you got a castle tour. You got a poster, a signed like set list. You got like stuff like that. Of course, I bought every T-shirt possible. Thankfully, they were in somewhat American sizes because you go to Europe and a double XL is like a medium here.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't realize that until I got into the T-shirt game that European sizing is correct sizing, and that American sizing, like basically when they have an XL, it's like a double XL, and then we just rip the tag out. So double XL or an XL here is really a double XL there, and then they just rip the tag out, and then everybody just wears everything bigger over here. And then I was like, what? Because then some of the companies I worked with, like American Apparel, was like they based everything off of European sizes. So like it was the first time I'd sell T-shirts and people would be like, these don't fit. And I'm like, it's actual fit. And then like that became a thing then where it was like you would sell T-shirts that are actual fit.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, and I gained the pandemic 30 probably, but I've always been a bigger guy. So like, the amount of times, especially in Italy, you buy something and it's like, it's not even going to fit on my arm. I don't know how many shirts I've given my niece and nephew over the year that I bought somewhere. It's like, it said XL, but I couldn't really get it over
large.
It's barely a large. But yeah, it was like this shirt's from the show. And, you know, it was a risky thing because my business was busy. I was a little shorthanded, but my brain was ready to explode and dreaming of it my whole life with friends. Like, we got to go see In Flames in like a club in Sweden and really get in with the crowd. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. And it cost me a good amount of money. And it was hectic to be literally, I left Thursday night from New York City and I got back Monday afternoon, you know, and that was 2 flights each way. And, you know, it was 18 hours to 20 hours in total of a trip each way. So I was there for not even 48 hours.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
But I think it's important to do stuff like that because then that's kind of what offsets your brain to where you start making more decisions for yourself and your happiness, especially when you're in a kitchen and you're working and doing the kind of work that you do, as you get locked into it. And then you end up hating it because all you fucking do is do that every fucking day, all day. And then it's just like, you know, then you start, how I was anyways, where I would get upset, where I would start hating the job because that was all I did. And then I would see my friends going out on the weekends because they had weekends off. And
I know that's
Christmas time. Oh, well, I'm doing catering. I'm not going to be at the fucking Christmas dinner. And then you just start getting pissed off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said last week when it was the actual 2 weeks ago, it was the anniversary, the 1 year anniversary of that weekend, was I've had a very fortunate life. I'm not an asshole who's going to cry that my life is hard, because my life is hard because I work hard.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate to have, you know, a better life than many people. But at the same time, I missed out on a lot of things. The great things I've done, which are usually around work, people are like, oh, you go to Italy 3 times a year usually. I'm like, yeah, mostly it's for work, which I love. I'm not complaining. But I had to do that, and it was the first time I ever did anything like that. And it's the best, one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And now the whole idea of leaving my business and having time for myself, I said, I'm going to take that time to do as much as I can like that, to try to ease my mind, to fuel my brain, to give me that sense of I don't know what I even want to say, like a sense of understanding that there's more to life than working. Because I love what I do, and it makes me work even more, and it takes away from the rest of my life. So unfortunately, I left my business during pandemic when I can't go really anywhere. So I'm like, I finally have time. I'm going to travel. I'm going to do things. I know I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to spend time. I made a friend with the drummer of Sabaton. He's an amazing drummer in Sweden. I'm going to spend a week there. We're going to hunt. We're going to do everything. I'm like, I can't do any of that. So I'm kind of like just riding it out and working on my shit and my home and stuff like that. But doing that is very important, even if it's as simple as, you know, driving 3 hours to get a cheesesteak or flying to Sweden to see a band. You have to give yourself a peace of mind. If you don't have that, then you're never going to cope with anything else. And that's why most people, I think, are flipping out, flying off the handle and losing their minds these days, because they're not giving themselves that thing. If you dreamed of doing something, where you got to be realistic. Listen, I dreamed of being a hockey player. I'm 5'5" and overweight. It's not going to happen. Okay. I dreamed of being a vocalist, a singer, or whatever. It could happen, but I realize that there's real life. There's me doing what I love. I'm lucky. I'm fortunate to do what I love, and at the same time still have dreams. Maybe one day, who knows? Maybe I'll win the lottery and I can finally become a friggin' singer in a band, you know? But if you don't give yourself little things, from as little to big to have in your mind, you'll you'll never be happy. You'll never be sane, even, you know?
Yeah, I agree 100% on everything you said. And it's very similar when I took the jump to just doing this. And then it's like, I never understood why I wanted to do this. And like, because I'm working for myself now, I'm doing everything that I want to do. It's definitely a lot harder to make money and I have to figure it out. Eventually it'll be making money on its own. But for now, it's just the parts of it. And then it's like, I'll see myself where I won't be wanting to do podcasts as much because the interviews are becoming stagnant because I'm choosing the same guest over and over. And then it's like, so then I'll go over to the t-shirts and then I'll get into the t-shirt stuff and I'll be like, oh, I'll get everything ready for fall. But then I'll find a new guest and I'll come over here and then I start finding this weird balance. And I'm like, you know, I said to my mom, I was like, this is the first time I'm waking up and I don't want to fucking blow my brains out. I said, I would always wake up and hated going to work. And then like it hit me like a couple months ago, I got up and I'm like, man, like you're not depressed anymore. You're not miserable anymore. And you were just searching for this thing to just make you happy. And if I don't ever stop working hard, I can leave all this and go work for somebody else and I'll work my balls off and be underpaid because no one's ever going to be able to pay me what I'm worth. So I'm like, all right, well, why don't you put all that into yourself? And then when I started putting that into myself and applying it, I watched this whole business grow. And then I'm like, this is what you want to do. And I feel like there's so many people that choose that either don't know how to do what they want to do or the light never turned on or whatever happened in my life where I needed an outlet. And that's what I want to do for a living. And it's like, I want to do podcasts, but then I look at it as this is working for me. Like we've been talking about doing this. We're going to do the podcast. Then we're going to make a sandwich. And then the amount of opportunities that we can have with each other, with you coming up here and doing pizza stuff and all that, like that's what the fuck I want to do. I don't want to sit in a restaurant and tell somebody to do that. And they tell me my ideas are dumb, or they take my idea and make all the money. And then I'm just sitting there like, hey man, that sucked. I didn't get to do what I really wanted to do. And I feel like it's super important that people, and it's what I try and have guests on that are trying to do things by themselves and to push themselves, is like, you need to find out what makes you happy and you need to go after that. And if it is working a 9 to 5 and having a family, that's awesome. That wasn't what it was for me. I have brothers who do that. And like my parents wanted me to be on that path. And then it took years of me just being like, no, I don't want to do the standard. I want to be creative. I want to make t-shirts. I want to do podcasts and I want to make money doing it.
Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, that was the same with me with my store. I could have stayed in the structure of all our stores and all the A&S stores and whatever and been fine. And then I could have, even now, like I don't have a paycheck for the first time in my life. I don't know luckily I have friends who need helpers for a thing and I can cook, I can do things, so I can go do parties. So I'm not at a loss. I'm not like dying over here. But like for me, it was like, I'm having fun doing what I do, but it's not what I want to do. And I don't know, I may open a store exactly like mine, my next business. I might not. I might open a pizzeria. I might open who knows? But I kind of am enjoying that like time where I really don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. And I have all these ideas. And I find that over the last couple of years since I ventured out, since I met new people, since I cooked in different places and worked with different people and stuff, that I'm realizing that, all right, I love what I do, but this is cool too. You know, this may be my thing. You know, I left my business because I can't figure out what my future is going to be if I'm just too busy to even think. Yeah. You know, at this point, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing. All I know is it's going to be food. It's going to be better than I've ever been because I'm going to do everything I can to make it so, you know, but I don't know. It could be a complete overhaul of my career. It could be me doing it again, just starting out better or starting out with a little bit more of a business brain or more, you know, I was 25 years old. It wasn't that young, but in the 12 years I've grown, you know, immensely. So, I mean, that's the thing. I'm learning that I can do these shows with people. I've cooked with some of the most amazing people that, and like things like people I saw on the Food Network or on Travel Channel, like these guys are awesome. And now like I'm texting, I'm like, oh, what are we doing tonight? You know, it's cool. Who knows? I don't know what it's going to be. I do know that working with certain people and working with a certain mind frame is where I want to be. And I was never going to get to even the chance to try to make that my whole life if I didn't just stop. Yeah. And refigure, you know, reconfigure.
It's what I did when I got to the breaking point at the post office. And I say it every time I talk about the post office. When they say going postal, it is a real thing. I pulled over on the side of the road. I had a mental breakdown. I called my parents, and then I was sitting here, and I'm like, what the fuck are you going to do? It was such a letdown for me because that's all they wanted me to have was like a real job. Yeah. They didn't, my dad was a printer, and my dad's super creative. He can draw. I get a lot of stuff from him. And my mom was a nurse. So they both just came from from like, they worked, they wanted to have a family, and then that was it. And then it's like, when I was sitting down here, I'm like looking around, I'm like, you've been working on this business for 10 fucking years. And there's a reason why I could never do it, because I couldn't do, it got to the point where I was working a full-time job and trying to run this full-time. And every time I did this, there was no, I was never unhappy. Yeah, sure, there's things where people don't like the t-shirt design you do, but there's always a second chance. There's always a time to create again. There's always a time to make somebody like something. There's always a better interview. There's always, you could do a million things.
Yeah.
With the post office, it was the same thing every fucking day. So then when I'm sitting down here, I'm like, you've been 10 years. Now it is jump into it. And then when I was into it, it's like what you're saying. It's like, I don't know where this business is going to go. I make money off the sponsors. I make money off this. I work a little bit here. But then after a couple months, I started realizing, I'm like, yo, man, like, this isn't going to fail because you're never going to let it fail. This could stay where it's at now, and I could just make money off of it and live in an apartment, or it could blow up and I can make a lot of money and be in a bigger house and be out in the middle of nowhere.
But either way, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
So that's the point. Because I mean, I didn't know I enjoyed as many things as doing, and I got to the point where those things I'm enjoying doing part-time, I kind of want to make them full-time.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier, where it's like, if I open a breakfast spot, it's on my terms. It's not going to be like I don't want to be open on the weekends. Yes, that's where you make your money. But what if I have it shut down on the weekend and then I make a dish, and then, or I have you up and I'm like, hey, why don't we do a dinner and we'll serve the plates for this much money, and then we can just sell out by getting, we'll do three shifts of dinner, and then we're not going to kill ourselves. We'll listen to death metal, make food all night, save this, put a couple $1,000 in our pocket, and you go home, and I made more money than I would have if I was open till fucking 2 a.m. serving drunk people.
And you're happy as fuck. And that's the most important thing.
Who wouldn't want to do it that way as opposed to just grinding it? I know the grind. Everybody I worked for was miserable.
It's not easy. And I'll work I love what I do, so I'll work 24 hours a day. But I know that's not the smart thing to do.
But you're working 24 hours a day for things that you love doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's different.
It becomes a double-edged sword, because then you're like, do I really need to work 24 hours a day in order to put the food out I want, or to put the message out in my food that I want? I don't know. And I'm not afraid to do it. And I've been willing to do it, and I'm still willing to do it. I just want to be able to connect with certain people. I want to be able to make things. I don't want to have to sacrifice part of my whole, I don't want to say my whole motivation, or I don't want to sacrifice that because I have to appease. And my business was always appeasing. It's like, I have great brassato that I made, that I had in a town in Piemonte, and I made it. It's like, okay, cool, but I'll take a turkey with American cheese, lettuce, tomato. And I love turkey sandwiches too, but I kind of don't want to spend that time. You know what I mean? That's it's all about happiness. And I was letting myself keep going further and further down because I still loved it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you love your captor, and my captor was my workaholic mentality, which will never leave me. But I want to do it smarter and better.
Yeah, because now you say you work 24 hours a day, but now you can do 6 hours with food, then 6 hours doing the pizza project with your buddies, then pick up some work doing the Gotham burgers, and then it's like, so you can take that 24 hours. Like, I don't ever stop. Like, I don't stop. Like last night I was hanging out with a friend, and we started rewatching The Sopranos, which is so awesome. And they definitely would not let that show be on now.
Most shows.
So we were like watching season 1, and I looked over and I said to her, I'm like, this is like, if you weren't here, I'd be uploading a podcast and doing all this, and I said I would just be shot tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah. No, you know what? I found that here I was in my store working like a dog, and I always said, oh, but you know what? I love it. But then I found myself last week, we're in the Hamptons, and lit the pizza oven and walked down the street to check out the ocean, and I'm like, wow.
Was that when you were doing that party?
Yeah.
The backyard party?
Yeah. I'm like, wow, this is
dope.
This is pretty cool. And we drove almost 3 hours to get there, hauling an oven trailer. And it was, 4 hours of work, and then repacking and driving another 3 hours. But we were by the water. We met cool people who want us to do other parties, which of course is great for business. But like, here's a selfie in front of the fucking ocean. I'm going to go make some pizza. I'd never had that. I never experienced that.
Yeah, now you're still making food, but you're doing it in somebody's backyard by the ocean. They're appreciating it more. Yeah. You're still making money, and you're not in a kitchen with mad that somebody's not pulling their fucking weight. Yeah. Because in a kitchen, everybody's got to pull their fucking weight, or somebody's working harder. And then that's when it starts being like, he said, she said bullshit. It's just,
that's where it becomes bitter. And you know what? I found myself, I was in Genova in last winter, and I'm like, how did things go this way? I mean, social media, of course, is the biggest help for anyone like me who's just in a town making good food. So people can, I mean, it went from just being a schlupp every day making my food to like now being flown to Genoa to make pesto with like the consortium of Genovese pesto, and there's TV cameras and stuff, and I'm like two of the best Italian chefs there are, and me. I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm like, this is what it's like to do what you love in a totally different way. Like, and that's what my goal is now. And no matter what it's going to be in the future, it's going to be 100% the way I want to do it.
Good for you. A lot of people don't ever do that. And when you told me, you like messaged me, you're like, hey, if you're coming down, this might be the last time, or like, like, hey, just, keep it under wraps. And then I was like, man, I'm so excited to see what he was going to do. Cause I knew it was going to be doing something bigger or like something on a level or opening another spot, but watching you kind of just wade through all these different creative things and traveling and just even not knowing what you're going to do sometimes is better than knowing what you have ahead of you. That's just going to be the same shit that was the last fucking 5 years. I'm really appreciating the not knowing, because I know myself and I'll do everything I can to pay my bills and to be successful with my food. I'll never question my passion ever. And as long as I have that and physically can work, I'll be fine. Yeah. But as of right now, I find myself like, shit, it's already 7 o'clock. I feel like I got to do this. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have to do anything tomorrow. It's weird. It's really weird. When I started doing this and I started trying to figure out like my work schedule and everything, there's even like yesterday, I had all this shit going on, and I went on a hike because like I make exercise important. So at some point I was like, all right, I know I have to go on a hike today. So there's 5 minutes up the road, it's this awesome park, and I went on a hike, and I'm like, oh, I can make calls. So I made a couple calls, landed 2 more sponsors, and I'm doing all this shit, and I'm like, man, I'm doing something I love while landing other things that I love at the same time. And then like I came home and I was like tired from the hike, and then I fell asleep for 25 minutes, got up. My buddy's kids called me and was like, hey man, do you want to come over and throw football and then eat dinner with us? And I was like, yeah. And then I'm like, then at the end of the real life. At the end of the night, I was kind of upset, where I was like, man, like, you fucked off and you really didn't get a lot done. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm me, which is never going to let this shit, like you're not going to turn into like, hey, what happened to that guy who used to run that store? He just fucking started. I'll be working at Panera. Yeah. So it's like when you have that inside of you, it's like, dude, that's not going away. If anything, you work way too hard to begin with. So if you take off a fucking day, the double work you're doing tomorrow is going to even out for it. And then I'm at this place now where it's like the unknowing is still there, but now I'm like, it's like almost like taking fucking, the swim arms off. And I'm like, I don't need to fucking worry about ever not working, because I work 10 times harder. We overthought it so many times. And now it's like, and that's the way it should be. I mean, it's not easy. And I'm, like I said, I'm fortunate to be able to take some time off, but I did what I did. I have people like, oh, was business bad? No, business wasn't bad. Oh, what was this? There was no problem. There was issues that of course will the same issues you have anytime you do anybody anything. Has issues. I had issues like anybody else, but even a guy I got into an argument was trying to tell me, oh, you're in a bad attitude because your business fell apart and you walked away. I'm like, my business didn't fall apart. I walked away from my business more successful than it ever was in the 12-year period. It was the hardest decision I ever made in my life was to do that. So I'm positive about it. I have my bittersweet moments. I wake up every day saying, wow, I would have made so much food by now. And now I'm watching TV, yelling at the Food Network because they're lying. I love when you call out all that horse shit. It's fun. You know what? And I would do it even more, but most people don't understand where I'm coming from with it. It's a pure, like, just love of stuff. And I hate the bastardizing and the lying to the people. But like, it's cool to see, you talk about your hiking and your booking stuff. I was in Sweden last year, and that's when we solidified all the plans for the Naples trip with the first group of Americans to compete in the first ever American pizza division in Naples, Italy, which is like the friggin' holy land of pizza. And here we were coming. So I'm walking around a castle on the Baltic Sea with no voice and no hearing because of a death metal concert, and here I am booking a hotel to go make pizza in fucking Naples with my friends. Like, I'm like, this is
this is what it's all about.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also important to point out that like that shit wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have chose to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could always choose to stay and keep doing the same thing you're doing, but the results of that are usually going to be the same thing. You make money and you just kind of go home, you go to bed, you wake up, you make money. But then when you kind of break that chain and you break that habit and or you just break anything and you kind of, like I said, you empty the fucking shoebox, you get to pick whatever the fuck you want to put back in it.
I could have easily stayed in my store for the rest of my life. I could have made great money because I did very well. I'm very fortunate. I could have keep making great food. I could have been 60 and retire and walk away from my store. But I don't want to. I've already said plenty in my life until now. Man, I didn't do that, or I should have done that. Why didn't I do that? Why was I afraid to do that? So if I didn't leave that design, I won't ever give myself a chance to see where I could go. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what's like. I always joked around. I want to get really food famous, like crazy food famous, and then fuck it up, and then you'll find me at Panera a few years later. It's like, isn't that the guy? That's the guy. And everybody looks at me, and I'm like, yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people like that off the Food Network.
But I always joked about that. But no comment. But seriously, like I don't know. I may never be as successful as I was financially with my store. I don't know, and I don't really care because I'll never be poor. Because I'll always work. I'll never be bitter or dissatisfied. Because as long as I can cook something and me or someone or all of us eat it and we love it, I'll be happy.
Yeah,
that's it.
I want to thank you for coming on. I definitely want to do this again.
Hell yeah.
You've been so interesting since the moment I saw you on Instagram to the moment that we came up to do this, because I knew this is how this would go, which is why I was excited to do a podcast. You definitely motivate the shit out of me for food. And then it was so refreshing to see somebody just doing themselves and then meeting you and you're like, no, this is him. And then literally every time I've had your food, it's blown me away. And it's hard. I'm not saying that it's hard to find that it's when I started cooking and got into cooking, it's hard to find good food in the area you live in once you start going outside of the area and start finding better food. So I don't know, man, like I shared some really cool fucking moments that'll go down. When we brought that pop-up, it was so funny the way that all happened, because I was sharing the food, and shout out to Dave and Vitro, and we went down there and I was like, hey, there's nowhere to eat, and I'm like, maybe we should bring some chairs. And then Vitro was like, all right, well, I'll bring a table. And then Dave was like, well, I'll bring a couple beers. And I was like, all right. And then he was like, fuck it, I'll get a tent. And then like, my life is so fucking crazy. And when we got to be able to go do that in your parking lot, it'll stand out as one of the best times ever. And then the fact that you're so laid back and that you communicate with just, I reached out to you on Instagram, where now it's developing into a thing where I was like, hey man, like I think we could do some stuff. And like I talked to my buddy Mike, and he's like, dude, you got to have him come up here and we should do a pop-up pizza thing. And I'm like, I could shut down 3 parking spots out front. I can open up the fucking studio.
Bring my oven right out.
Yeah. And then so like, but you will do that.
Hell yeah.
So like, I don't know, man. I really want to thank you for coming on.
Thanks, man.
I've been a fan since the moment Kevin introduced us. I definitely want to have you back up, because originally we were supposed to go to the casino and we were going to do all this stuff. And Mike was like, the casino's open, and I'm like, all right. I was like, we'll see what, next time he comes up, or when we do the pizza thing, we'll set up like more of kind of like a scheduled hangout. But
I'm down. I want to have fun with cool people and make food and laugh and enjoy. I'm here. I'm ready.
I'm down. I'm also starving and want to make a sandwich with you, but I want to give you a chance to let anybody know what your social media is, how they can get a hold of you, what you're doing now, if you're going to be doing the pizza stuff, if they're interested in doing a party.
Well, my main page is mind_machine, which I picked 8 years ago because I couldn't decide. So I picked a Scar Symmetry death metal song and it's stuck with me after people started putting like videos out or tagging me. So I think I'm forever stuck as Mind Machine. And then there's my Forno Sant'Angelo, which is Sant'Angelo is the town my father's from in Italy. People think I'm calling myself a saint. But that's my pizza page, which now I'm doing pizza exclusively being unemployed. And that's where my friend Domenico and he works at Castei in the city, which they serve my porchetta. Roberto's the owner, and he's one of the greatest guys in food and in the world. And they're serving my porchetta. We're doing stuff together. We're doing party pop-ups and pizza parties. We're doing some more again in the Hamptons this weekend. You can contact me at Forno Sant'Angelo or Mimo Pizzaiolo. You'll see, I've tagged them 1,000 times. If you go on my page and you don't see my friends, something's wrong.
I'll have all the links in the bio for the podcast.
If you want us for a pizza party or if you want to do collaborate, I'm going to be doing a lot of collaborations with a lot of great food people and these people that I get to call a friend, but I respect the shit out of what they make and I love their food. And the selfish part is I want to work with them, but I also want to eat their food. So it's going to be like, all right, I'm going to eat your pizza. Go eat porchetta. Let's just, so you can contact me there. I mean, Mind Machine is growing, and social media is kind of all a little stagnant right now, it seems like, but that's where you can find me the most. That's where you can see all my stupidity on my story and the death metal and my dog and my friends. And
I love it. Everybody that I posted from that started following you like hit me up and they're like, dude, he's coming into town, let me know. And a couple people wanted to come down, it just didn't work out. And
I'll be back. I'm unemployed, bro.
I did we could definitely do we'll talk after the show, but I have a million projects I want to work on, but I did get mozzarella for the people that asked. But that's the other thing too, is you're selling that mozzarella, and they're the cheese place that was in Nazareth, and then now I can say this because they're gone, but they've been there for forever, and it was Calandra's cheese, and that was the best mozzarella I've ever had until I had yours. It's a different style, and I'm not saying anything bad about Calandra's. I love them. They're good friends with my parents, and they've been in this town for forever, and they finally retired, and they're selling their cheese business. But that mozzarella, I've never had anything melt in my fucking mouth like that before. And then when we were down here for the fights, because the one time I got a bunch of food and brought it back for fights, and I've been telling everybody I was going to do it, and I finally did it when I came down with Mike. And when I cut the fucking mozzarella on that fucking cutting board, it fucking was pouring over the side of the fucking thing, and everyone's like, what is this? But it was awesome, and that's why I want to thank you, man. Like, that was such a good night. And I even texted you. I was like, dude, everybody's fucking floored on the food.
That means a lot. It means a lot to hear from people, especially people I respect the way they feel about things. To know they're enjoying my food. It's the cliche thing. I do it for you, but I really do. I love to hear. Yeah, and I know you do because of just how good the food tastes. Like you wouldn't be making that unless you weren't trying to make people happy with it, and that's why I texted you about it. But I'm excited to do a bunch of projects. I have some cool ideas for videos, and I think we could go. I want to go to Walter's. I want to go. I want to go to Mama's too. I've been there with Kevin. Absolutely. You got to take you to Castell. You got to go to a Gotham pop-up.
Gotham pop-up, that 100%. Yeah. I know if you got time to do it now too, we'll figure it out. And then maybe I'll just, my buddy Matt, who's been filming a lot of stuff for me, maybe we'll just go down and just kind of eat and just kind of get a feel for shit and be like, hey, how could we do something with this?
Cool. I'm ready.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, bro.
Bye. Bye. What the fuck? I never know how to end these.
Now we're going to eat.
Bye.
Hey, bye. Wait, what about the sandwiches? Where did I come?
We're definitely
an hour and a half to make egg sandwiches.
Get the fuck out of here. And then I was like, oh, you're not going to fuck up the ending of the show. And you say bye. When am I on a phone?
Bye,
you stupid. Good day, sir.